Disney invested nearly $250 million trying to give Snow White a fresh look, only to have Family Guy turn the whole thing into a punchline. The mockery didn't just stop at the film itself, it took aim at Disney as a whole, from their casting choices to their endless stream of reboots. The craziest part? They didn't even have to name Rachel Zegler directly for viewers to instantly know who was being targeted. The message was as sharp as it was clear. This wasn't a random jab, it was a full-force critique that resonated with the public. People are tired of forced reboots and the moral lessons hidden behind what's supposed to be entertainment. Right now, Rachel Zegler has unfortunately become the symbol of all that frustration. In one unforgettable scene, Peter Griffin strolls through Disneyland looking completely lost. In the background, a roller coaster marked Disney stock is plummeting, sending a not-so-subtle message. Disney's empire is on the brink, and their obsession with remaking classics is to blame. And just when you think it can't get worse, Peter flips on the TV and spots an attractive woman. "Wow, that girl is hot," he says, only for his friend to correct him. "That's a boy."
Wow, that girl's hot.
That's a guy.
That other guy's handsome.
That's a girl.
That cat is cute.
That's a dog.
This keeps happening until Peter completely loses his cool and shouts, "What is everything?" It's a chaotic and hilarious moment, but it's also a sharp commentary on the identity politics that many feel are taking over Hollywood's approach to storytelling. That line, "What is everything?" has even become its own meme, perfectly encapsulating how many viewers feel about the constant changes in modern reboots. Everything is being altered, renamed, and redefined, and audiences are expected to accept it without question. Family Guy took that frustration and turned it into a targeted, no-holds-barred joke. They didn't hold back because they didn't have to. That's the freedom of a show built on being provocative. For Disney, however, this wasn't just another roast. It was a wake-up call they couldn't ignore. But just when you think it's over, here comes the twist. Family Guy wasn't even the first animated series to go after Disney's new direction. South Park beat them to it and didn't just mock Snow White, they dismantled the entire system behind it. From Kathleen Kennedy and Disney's boardroom decisions to their recycled casting choices and what they called the "put a chick in it and make her gay" formula, South Park took no prisoners. Rachel Zegler was already in the crosshairs, and while Family Guy fired shots, South Park dropped a bombshell. South Park didn't just make fun of Disney, they reverse-engineered the entire formula and mocked it line by line in their Joining the Pandaverse special. They introduced a character clearly meant to satirize Kathleen Kennedy, the Disney executive behind most of the company's recent reboots, giving her a mystical object called the Panderstone. Her mission? To insert diverse women into every franchise, regardless of whether it made sense. The episode plays out like a fever dream where Cartman is tormented by a multiverse in which every classic character is replaced by a corporate-approved version. While obviously satirical, the episode hit too close to home for Disney to just laugh it off. The viral moment came when South Park's version of Kennedy raises her hands and declares, "Put a chick in it and make her gay." That single line became a slogan for how many viewers see Disney's recent films, forced, formulaic, and hollow. The criticism didn't stop at animation. George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, was caught in a viral clip where he directly criticized Kennedy during a panel. The audience laughed, but it was an uncomfortable laugh, one that felt all too real. The studio behind some of cinema's most beloved stories is now being dragged by animated shows, commentators, YouTubers, and even its own creators. And at the center of it all is Rachel Zegler. While Snow White continues to struggle with its backlash, Disney is already looking ahead to its next big gamble, a live-action remake of Tangled. And according to reports, Rachel Zegler is attached to that project as well, which is not going over well online. Tangled is set to be the most expensive Disney remake ever, with a budget pushing over $500 million, including marketing. After losing nearly $200 million on Snow White, panic is setting in behind the scenes. Even Disney's loyal fans are asking the obvious question, why risk this much again? Especially with someone the internet already has its sights set on? The backlash against Tangled has begun before filming even starts, and it's not because Rachel Zegler lacks talent. It's because audiences feel they're being sold a brand, not a story. When you put $500 million behind that brand, the expectation isn't just for a good movie, it's for something indestructible, something people are eager to support. But right now, that's nowhere near where the energy is heading. And speaking of bad energy, that takes us straight to the moment when Rachel Zegler walked into an empty theater, posted a TikTok, and inadvertently reminded everyone, let's talk about just how disastrously Snow White tanked. Typically, an actress showing up at a theater wouldn't make headlines, but this wasn't just any screening. This was for her own film, her big promotional moment, and the theater was almost entirely empty. She posted a quick Instagram story with a bouquet of flowers in hand, walking into the cinema like it was a red carpet event. But behind her were only a few scattered viewers. No buzz, no crowd, no excitement. It felt less like a Disney blockbuster and more like a quiet, uneventful Tuesday afternoon showing. What was meant to be a charming viral moment quickly turned into a meme. People joked that she had brought flowers to a funeral, with some even calling it the loneliest premiere in Disney history. While it's easy to laugh at the awkwardness, it represented something much deeper: the disconnect between the film and its intended audience, and between Rachel Zegler and the fans who should have been there. One big reason for that disconnect was her controversial casting. In the original fairy tale, Snow White is described as having skin as white as snow. So, when Disney cast a Latina actress in the role, the internet exploded with reactions. Critics argued that if you're remaking a classic, you should at least stick to the core elements that define the character. Rachel Zegler responded with a TikTok defending her role, emphasizing the importance of modern representation. But the issue wasn't just the casting, it was everything that came after. Instead of simply defending her role, Rachel began criticizing the original film, calling it weird and outdated. She even suggested that the prince in the story was problematic. That's where many fans drew the line. If you're taking on such an iconic role, at least show some respect for the source material. At least pretend to appreciate what came before you. But the backlash didn't stop there. It turned political. Rachel Zegler, alongside other Hollywood figures, publicly supported Palestine during the Israel-Gaza conflict and signed a letter calling for a ceasefire. That alone might not have sparked chaos, but her co-star, Gal Gadot, is famously pro-Israel. Suddenly, a fictional fairy tale movie became a real-world political battlefield. The tension reached a boiling point when Lebanon officially banned the film, not because of Rachel, but because of Gal Gadot. Lebanon had already blacklisted Gadot due to her pro-Israel stance, meaning any movie featuring her would be blocked from release. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get more complicated, an old clip of Rachel resurfaced. She had made controversial statements on social media, which required some serious damage control. She apologized, but, as we know, the internet never forgets. It just waits for the right moment to bring things back up. By this point, Rachel Zegler was trending more for drama than her acting. And it didn't matter how stunning the visuals were, or how many times Disney tried to reframe the narrative. The damage had been done. And then came the final blow: the disastrous box office numbers. Snow White had a massive budget, somewhere between $240 million and $270 million, but it only managed to gross around $184 million worldwide. Even Disney insiders couldn't deny that the film had significantly underperformed. Behind closed doors, producer Mark Platt's son, Jonah Platt, didn't hold back, bluntly stating what most executives were thinking, but were too afraid to say publicly. Rachel's comments, her interviews, her social media presence, her entire public persona were a huge part of what tanked the film. Now, the question isn't whether Snow White failed. That's already a given. The real question is, what's Disney going to do next? Animated shows have been roasting them relentlessly. Fans are walking away, and their most expensive remake ever still hasn't even started production. Even Disney's most loyal supporters are starting to look the other way. But the roasts just keep coming, and one of the harshest might have flown under the radar, courtesy of Family Guy. In one infamous episode titled Quagmire's Dad, the show introduced a transgender character named Ida. While the intent may have been progressive for its time, the execution was far from it. The most notorious moment: Brian the dog vomiting repeatedly after discovering he had slept with Ida. The scene sparked outrage across the internet, but Family Guy never backed down. They've never claimed to be fair after all. Disney's had its fair share of bold jabs lately, especially around its casting choices, identity politics, and box office misfires. And if you think they're done with the heat, think again. Now, there's one animated giant that's yet to fully join the fray, but might just be next: The Simpsons. For over 30 years, The Simpsons have skillfully lampooned politics, media, and pop culture. Lately, they've been inching closer to taking aim at their Disney parent company. Remember, Disney owns them now, but that hasn't stopped the show from making daring digs at their corporate overlords. They've already skewered Marvel fatigue, Star Wars overload, and the constant stream of reboots. So it seems inevitable that Snow White could soon find itself as their next target. And that's a serious problem for Disney. The Simpsons still hold incredible cultural clout. If they drop an episode roasting the Tangled remake, Rachel Zegler, or Disney's constant obsession with rewriting its history, it's going to hit hard. Not because it's controversial, but because viewers will see the truth in it. Once The Simpsons fully joins the criticism, it'll mark something much worse for Disney. They've lost control of the narrative. When even their own properties start turning against them, it's no longer just online trolls or critics. It's about legitimacy. The controversy surrounding Snow White has never been just about Rachel Zegler or one underwhelming movie. It's about trust. Disney used to be synonymous with timeless stories, characters that people could relate to, and movies that families could escape into together. Now, they're churning out reboots filled with political messaging, and even their most loyal fans are starting to tune out. The real question isn't whether the next roast is coming, but who will deliver it. Family Guy already had its turn, South Park annihilated Disney, and The Simpsons are circling. If things don't shift soon, the next roast won't just be a funny jab, it could be the final nail in the coffin for an era of Disney that many viewers are already ready to move on from. What makes this situation even more dangerous for Disney is how the criticism is coming from all directions. Conservative commentators were the first to criticize Snow White's rebranding, but now liberal comedians are jumping in too. This isn't just a partisan issue anymore, it's become a punchline across the political spectrum. When you're being roasted by both South Park and late-night talk shows, it's clear you've hit a cultural nerve. And then there's Rachel Zegler, who's become an unintended symbol of corporate Hollywood's fixation on identity politics. She's a talented young actress who showed real promise in West Side Story, but now she's being defined by controversy rather than her craft. Every interview feels like a minefield, and every social media post is under a microscope. With Tangled looming, there's no escaping the spotlight. Disney executives are reportedly scrambling behind closed doors. Internal memos are circulating, discussing ways to course correct and return to core storytelling values. Some are even talking about possibly recasting Tangled or delaying production until the heat dies down. But the damage to public perception can't be fixed with a press release or a quick pivot. Trust, once lost, takes years to rebuild. Some industry insiders believe this moment marks a larger cultural shift. The pendulum that swung hard toward identity-focused storytelling seems to be swinging back toward more traditional narratives. Studios that built their strategies around political messaging are seeing their box office numbers crater, while straightforward crowd pleasers continue to succeed. It's not that audiences reject diversity, they just reject being lectured to when they've paid for entertainment. The irony, Walt Disney himself understood this principle perfectly. He famously said, "I don't make movies for critics. I make them for people." That mindset built an empire. But today, it feels like that empire is being dismantled piece by piece. As Disney faces this existential crisis, other studios are watching closely. Universal, Warner Brothers, and Paramount are all adjusting their strategies, trying to avoid the same pitfalls. No one wants to be the next cautionary tale. No one wants their flagship franchises turned into running jokes on animated sitcoms. The ultimate question remains: will Disney learn from the failure of Snow White before Tangled suffers the same fate? Or will they double down, dismiss the criticism as hate, and watch another $500 million go up in smoke? Because if Family Guy, South Park, and The Simpsons are any indication, the roasts are only getting started.